the Upshot, Aussie World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, as always, is Josh Mansfield. It is Thursday, June 30th, and today is the start of the 2022 U.S. Women's Disc Golf Championship. That's right, it's the second major of the season for the FPO field, and it's really, I think, the only weekend of the season where all of the focus is squarely on FPO. There's no MPO stop this weekend, and so we get to watch live disc golf and take in as a lot of records and a lot of milestones are trying to be set this weekend. So, Josh, I'm excited. How are you feeling?
I think it's going to be really good. U.S. Women's is an exciting major, as you said, because of the focus on FPO. I mean, I don't remember the last time Jomez covered an FPO round. They just don't. I don't know. I'm sure they have, but it's not often.
18? Maybe 2019. It's been a few years.
Seems right.
It's been a few years.
Yeah, been a hot minute. So it's exciting to see the kind of production and focus and value that often goes into MPO that is going to be focused towards FPO. Though, I mean, we have a couple caveats that we're going to talk about later in the show.
All right. Well, I can't wait to break it all down. We're gonna dive deep today in our preview show, and so let's just start with the things that you need to know about the U.S. Women's Championship. First of all, it's being held in Madison, Wisconsin. After a lot of complaints last year about the pro women having to play on 3 different courses, it will be a 4-round, 2-course tournament in Madison, and the players in FPO will be competing on Elver and Token Creek, 2 very popular, very well-known courses in the Madison area. This Madison community has hosted other tournaments in the past, other majors, but mostly, amateur championships, junior championships, but long-established disc community in Madison, both very popular in disc golf and ultimate frisbee. The U.S. Women's Championship has been held since 1999. It was first called U.S. Women's Disc Golf Championship in 2001, but there were Women's National Championships. We obviously, during COVID, had the Women's National Championship in lieu of the U.S. Women's Disc Golf Championship. So, it's had different names, but we've always had, since 99, a FPO U.S. Championship. This is the, Josh, strongest FPO field ever. There are 40 competitors rated above 920. And if that's not enough to get you excited, this is also the biggest USWDGC that we've ever had. There are 320 players currently registered for this year's event. That's up from 263 last year, which was record-setting. So we're seeing just enormous growth, and that's translating into the FPO field where we have more than 90 competitors, and again, 40 of them above 920, more than 20 above 940. So it's just an incredibly competitive tournament this year, and they're going to be playing on courses where a lot of people can realistically win, and I think, well, we'll get more into that in a moment, but how about all of the growth and the just the depth of talent that we're seeing right now in FPO?
Well, I mean, not only you have the statistics to back it up, but when you look at the FPO registration, it's starting to look like, at least for this tournament, like an MPO registration where I can look at the registration screen and start scrolling, and I'm like, yep, recognize that name. And you get a ways down. I mean, you're seeing players who we've seen. I think of an example like Deanne Carey, for example, pretty far down the registration. She made the match play championships last year. I mean, there are players who are registered who I've thought in the past, oh, this player could be an up and comer, and they are not even close to the top of registration this weekend. It's very similar to MPO, where, when you look just based and sorted on rating, Bradley Williams would have been an example of, yep, know that guy. I know he's had a couple wins and and then moved on, right? And not thought much of it. It means that there's a lot of players, especially given this course, who have the opportunity to win. There's a lot of names that we're going to get to watch, and I'm excited for the coverage that's going to be there.
Absolutely. So 5 wins all time at U.S. Women's for Paige Pierce. Paige is chasing a big milestone. We'll talk about that in an upcoming segment. But it's worth noting that she already has the record for the most wins at US WDGC and is going for number 6. This includes her women's national championship win in 2020. Look, here's a stat for you, Josh. Paige has finished first or second at 12 straight majors dating back to 2017. Think about that. And all time, if you look at her statistics, what she's been able to do over the course of her career, she's won nearly half of the majors she's entered. She's average finish at majors, 2.26. So we know that she's a special player, and she's just been incredibly difficult to beat. Of course, winning Champions Cup earlier this season, but she's the standard bearer. Regardless of who you think's got a shot this weekend, she has to be at the top of the list in terms of likelihood to win.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think that, there's a combination of factors that lead into that. But the number one is that when you have players like Paige who are incredibly skilled, incredibly talented, you give them 4 rounds and you put the stakes of a major on the line, that's the weekend that they're going to show up. I think there's a couple other players that you're going to have in that list. Katrina Allen, obviously, who has a handful of majors herself. She's 7 and is chasing number 8. And then you have, obviously, who's not here, Kristen Tatar, who is the only European woman to win the US WDGC back in 2019. These are the kind of players that you can expect to, when it comes major time, deliver their best performance time in, time out, because that's what it means to be great. And Paige embodies greatness.
So you kind of glossed over it, but we got to talk about it. The highest rated player in the world, Kristen Tatar, is not going to be here. She was planning to come over for the Preserve and then play U.S. Women's, be here for a couple weeks before heading back over for the European Open, which is just a few weeks now in July. But her partner Silver Lott tested positive for COVID, so she didn't make the trip. She was also coughing and had a sore throat, and she ultimately tested positive for COVID as well. She posted it on Instagram yesterday, and so no issues. She went through it pretty quickly. But she's also, and some folks have sleuthed this in the Ultra Disc Golf Discord. Some of our European listeners who are out spectating some tournaments in Europe notice this. Kristen's been playing with like an elbow sleeve or like some compression on her elbow, and she admitted in this Instagram post that her elbow has been causing her a lot of pain when she throws backhand. So she's kind of just been playing through it by taking painkillers to deal with the pain. But she's already seen a physiotherapist. She's going to go see an orthopedist. And so she's trying to, you never want to get COVID-19, but this has given her a natural break in the season to try to deal with this elbow issue. And this becomes yet another example, Josh, of overuse injuries in disc golf. And, could just be like a tennis elbow thing. It would not be surprising given the repetitive nature of the sport. But obviously it's super disappointing that Kristen will not be playing this weekend.
Yeah. I'm really interested, because like you said and mentioned, tennis elbow, I would be really curious to know if when we look at disc golf and for preventative maintenance and injury care, if tennis is a better sport or is baseball a better sport, because there are different motions, and it's hard for me to know, and baseball probably would be more akin to a forehand. Is baseball batting then the backhand? Because what's the pitch count, right? What's the throw count
Right.
for professional disc golfers? The problem is I don't think we have that. We've never done that data. And I think that data is very variable. I don't really know how to go about, planning, collecting that data. But it's a difficult question that I think is one that players need to take a very medical approach to in trying to plan their season and their schedules, because even if it means you're only playing half the tournaments on tour, that's better than playing the first third and then being out for the rest of the season. And I think we've seen enough injuries that this is something that the Pro Tour and the players need to be taking very seriously. I'm not implying that they don't, but the days of just play every tournament and you'll be able to handle it, with courses extending, with number of rounds increasing,
Yep.
with the pressure and the difficulty increasing, I think it's something that they have to take seriously.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think some enterprising PhD student should start a 5-year study of professional disc golfers, longitudinal study where they check in with surveys about injuries over the course of many years, and then publish that data, because that's the kind of thing we have for most sports. We know about the incidence rate of various injuries in soccer and in baseball, and like what kinds of injuries tend to happen. We just simply don't have that data, as far as I know, in disc golf. And I think there's an opportunity for somebody to do that research. So it'd be pretty cool if it happened. So let's dig in a little bit more to these courses. Okay, so first and foremost, what you need to know, as is typical of the U.S. Women's Championship, which it's worth noting is also the amateur championships. This is not just the pro U.S. Women's Championship. Like, all the amateur divisions are playing this weekend all over Madison. It's a huge event. And so the course selection represents that. So these will be some of the easiest courses that the FPO field plays all season. This is important to understand.
I think these are the easiest courses. I don't think there's some of.
You may be right.
I don't know what course would beat it.
So let me get my notes pulled up here. So I already mentioned Elver and Token Creek. I think, let me just give you this stat straight up off the top. Of the 36 holes that the FPO players will play this weekend, 15 of them are under 300 feet long. Okay? Elver is 6,266 feet. Token Creek is 6,576 feet. Keep in mind, FPO field has been playing on 9,000-foot courses for most of the last few weeks. Close to 10,000. And we're playing 6,500 and 6,200. Okay, so distance is not at a premium. It is not going to be about long arms this weekend. It's going to be about control shots. It's going to be about putting. And it's going to be, even the par fours, the players were talking about this in the press conference yesterday. Even the par fours are not typically reachable for eagle because of the way that the holes are designed. So there's just not going to be a lot of opportunities out there. There's a couple holes, obviously. There's some big downhill bomber shots. The 18th hole at Elver is, I was talking to somebody from Madison. They said it's the signature tee shot in Madison, of all of Madison, because it's a big.
Okay.
On Elver, you go up a hill, like a sledding hill, as Terry Miller described it to me. You play kind of in the woods along the top and the kind of traversing the hill, and then 18 is the downhill bomber, empty your bag type shot. So that will be one to watch for. Distance obviously may come into play there, though it is downhill. But,
sure.
Paige Pierce, Ella Hansen, Jen Allen, the bombers, they're not going to have an outsized advantage relative to a lot of the courses we see on tour. So I think that's just fundamentally, we got to understand that. So Elver, par 59, 6,200 feet. It was built in the early 1990s. It was one of the first courses in Wisconsin. It's a mix of open and wooded shots. It's going to be very scoreable for the top players. You generally think about it as mostly par 3 golf. They mixed and matched pin and tee options for FPO. Generally, I think we're going to see the more difficult matchups of those combinations, but still going to be birdie or die disc golf. Token Creek, Josh, par 60, 6,500 feet. Typically, there are 3 pin locations. They're not going to move the pins at all during the event, so everything's going to be selected from that. Token Creek is more open. There's a lot of space to throw and shape your shots. There are some woods, but there's just a lot of room for shot shaping. Signature hole is probably going to be the relatively short hole 6. Very, very beautiful hole with some rock walls, aceable. It was the first public pay-to-play course in Wisconsin, which is very controversial at the time, but it was and is one of the just best maintained courses in all of Wisconsin. It's very flat compared to Elver's elevation and hilliness. And again, it's going to be very scoreable. So that is kind of your course breakdown. And Josh, for a little bit of extra detail, I thought it'd be good if we took a look at the Caddie book. So here, let's take a look at hole number 1. If you're joining us on YouTube, let's take a look at hole number 1 from Elver. There it is, Josh. How would you attack this hole?
Well, Charlie, I would throw a putter because there's obviously nothing in my way. No OB. There's no trees. There's no anything. It's 270 feet or so, and I would 257. Excuse me. And I would just throw a putter straight at it because that's all. What is this? What is this Caddie? Okay, I have a story to tell. I went to go look for the Caddie book. And I accidentally pulled up 2021, and I didn't really notice that I was looking at 2021 U.S. Women's. And I'm scrolling through, and it's like the satellite image from UDisc. And then they had just put a letter next to where the pin was, and then drawn a line. Very unhelpful. And I was like, this is a pretty bad Caddie book. And then you're like, no, you need to go find the real Caddie book. I pull it open, and I was shocked that they could do worse. Like, How did they regress? Who thought this was an acceptable Caddie book?
You know what it looks like? It looks like a Caddie book for a mini golf course.
Yes, it does.
It looks like putt-putt. Like, if you're not watching on YouTube and you're listening on your podcast app of choice, I mean, we're talking like clip art, like it's truly not even helpful. I mean, it's just truly like, why did they go through the effort to even make this? Right. I mean, and I'm not expecting Disc Golf Pro Tour level Caddie books, with all of the bells and whistles that they include. But like, there's, just to explain it to those who are audio, but like, just check it out on YouTube or look up the Caddie book yourself, folks.
Yeah.
There is a blob that represents the fairway. There is a pin location and there is a basket location, and there is no other marking on any of the holes. Nothing. There's no OB markings. There's no trees posted. Literally every hole looks like a putt-putt.
There's a couple OBs marked. Like on hole 18 of Token Creek or Talking Creek, they've got one, but not on hole 1.
Well, there is no OB at. Oh, you're totally right. I take it back because there is no OB at Elver.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, there's very minimal OB this weekend in general. But this is just a hysterical Caddie book.
the blob doesn't even make sense to me because like a third of the blob is behind the tee pad and to the left. Like, are they worried the FPO are going to go backwards on accident? Like, why is that blob present?
I think it must be because there's another pin location or a tee pad location down in that blob, but
it's not being used.
I know.
This Caddie book's a joke.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on. We're gonna enjoy that. We're gonna enjoy the good things today. But yeah, this is not it, as they say. This is not it. So let's see. What else do we have here? I think it's probably time for us to dig into what this major would mean to the players who are in it to win it. And we're going to get to that right after this. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Head over to Pound Disc Golf's Facebook page to get all the latest information. The Rufus is in production. That's right. So 10 prototypes deep. Now the Rufus is getting made, and pre-orders are going to be available very soon. You can find out more and get the latest and greatest at facebook.com/pounddiscgolf. Welcome back to the Upshot. Winning a major is always a milestone in any player's career. We're going to talk now about what winning this major would mean to the players in the field. And we have to start with Paige Pierce. She's the winningest player at the U.S. Women's Championship with 5. But there's a little bit more on the line for her this weekend. Josh, what is it?
Yeah, well, Paige right now is currently tied with Val Jenkins for the most majors in FPO history at the number 16. If Paige wins this weekend, it means that she outright holds the most majors of any FPO player in history, a number that I don't anticipate will be broken ever, probably. But I mean, that number is just an astonishing one. When you look down the list, second place includes Katrina Allen at 7, and Juliana Korver is down at 6. And those are your active players who still, have majors. Nobody is close to catching Paige on the field behind her. So this tournament is a big deal. I don't think it's her last chance to pass if she doesn't win by any means. But I think that, winning Champions Cup already, to turn around and go 2 for 2 in order to overtake that record would be a really special moment for Paige, and is definitely going to add some pressure to, a tournament that obviously she's going to want to win anyways.
I mean, not that there's really any doubt, but this removes any possible shred of doubt that Paige is the greatest player in FPO history. Mm-hmm. I mean, this seals it. It also puts her 2 shy of Climo for most majors all time, period. Climo had 19. So she's got a chance to surpass that. I think, in fact, I'd probably bet on it. I'd probably say that she's going to surpass it. But this is our first chance to get the solo outright lead. And it's going to be very interesting because Val Jenkins-Das is going to be in the booth calling the action this weekend on Disc Golf Network. And I'm sure we're going to discuss that on the air. So quite an opportunity for Pierce. Let's talk about some of the other players who are in the field who have already won a major. Let's start with Katrina Allen. This would put her solo third all time. She's tied right now in the 7 spot with Des Redding and Elaine King. And so she's got a chance to move to, that solo third position behind Paige and Val. And, I think she's also going to get another one probably at some point. But, and I think she's got a really good chance this weekend, although the emphasis on putting that I expect there to be could make it difficult. But certainly this would be a huge win for her. Another win against Paige at a major. I think this would be number 6 for her going head to head against Paige at a major championship. And of course, you can't forget last year at the World Championships and what a moment that was. She's chasing number 2 U.S. women's title this weekend.
Yeah. Next, Evelina Salonen. Evelina has a major already. She won the 2019 Konopishta Open, not 2019. She won the Konopishta Open. And so that does give her one major. For Evelina, I think it's not your first major, but what I think it really does for Evelina is it kind of course corrects, and not just for this season. I think it course corrects for her time on the U.S. tour moving forward. If she can come, establish the legitimacy, and show that, yes, I've had putting woes, I'm improving. It's something that I don't have an issue with in Europe, and it's going to get fixed, and I can win here in the United States, and I can win at the U.S. Women's Disc Golf Championship. It was a big deal for Kristen in a lot of that same way. I think that's the same impact that it could have on Evelina this weekend to set her up for success for the rest of this tour, but even in future seasons as she continues to tour more in the United States.
Well, remember back when the big European three came over to the U.S. in 2019, Evelina was seen as the leader of that group, that she was the best of the three. And Kristen Tatar won her first major at U.S. Women's in 2019. And at that point, only Evelina had won a major of the Europeans. So they each have one now. And this would move her back to the top of that list. I don't know that it would put her to the top of the European power rankings, as it were, because of the way that Kristen has played this season. But, I mean, obviously it would erase so many of the woes that we've seen. I think, the confidence coming back for Evelina is going to be a big factor in her success moving forward. She obviously has the tools to be an incredibly successful disc golfer. And, she said in the press conference on Tuesday that she's not yet fully confident in the putter. But, if it's going to happen this weekend, it's going to happen because she putts well. And that could just be not only big for her to get her second major and move into the, multi-time major winner category, of which there's not very many people, but it would also be just an enormous boon for her game and her mental game moving forward. So Juliana Korver is back in the field. She's tied for third most wins at the majors all time with Katrina and Des Redding and Elaine King. I left her on the list earlier. So wait a minute. No, hang on.
No, this would tie her for third.
That's what I meant to say. So this would put her into that tie up at that spot. And it's realistic. I mean, again, she's another player where putting is like is a weak point. So I don't know if I think she's a favorite, but like we have seen her be competitive over these last two seasons, and there's no reason that on these courses she couldn't pull it off. And, I mean, what a storyline it would be for her, 2021 Rookie of the Year, Juliana Korver, to get another major championship. I'm going to beat that horse till it's dead, Josh.
Charlie, that horse is dead. You're still beating it.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. It's noteworthy that the first U.S. Women's was Juliana Korver, who won back in 1999.
Back in 99.
Charlie, how many did she win by again?
I mean, she was clearly the best player in the world at that point. I'm going to guess like 8 strokes.
That's a little more than that. Think 35?
No. Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
So many strokes. She almost could have just not showed up for the back nine.
Well, I will say this: we do have the spooky energy of people winning the most recent event that won the first event. Going on after Preserve. So maybe Juliana Korver will keep it going here.
Bradley's forces will pull Juliana to it as well. Next on our list, Sarah Hokum.
The last major winner in the field.
The last major winner in the field. Well, that's not true.
It's not?
No, isn't.
Des Redding. Des Redding is playing.
Des Redding is playing as well.
And I don't know. Is Elaine playing too? She might.
I don't know if Elaine is playing.
Well, you are right. No disrespect to Des Redding, but I apologize. I would say players who are competitive to win.
Yes. That's kind of what our list is. This is our last one. Sarah Hokum. This would give her second major. She has a world championship to her name. I think what this does for Sarah is it establishes herself as still a legitimate contender, because the narrative around Sarah this season has been a player kind of in decline. That her, she's always been incredibly consistent. She's always been competitive. But look, I mean, Sarah's getting older and distance has never been her forte. And as the field is getting stronger, Sarah's not ascending with that field. And so whether it's the decline of her game or just the decline relative to the standards of the tour now, I think this could do a lot to kind of course correct her and keep her in a conversation about, the fact that Sarah can she can still hang. And I think this course sets up, or the set of courses sets up well. There are a lot of forehand holes, and the lack of distance means that Sarah may be able to get some birdies that players who are otherwise uncomfortable with the forehand off the tee may not be able to get.
Sarah Hokum said 80% of players should be able to reach almost all of these holes for birdie. It's a huge deal. And she took the preserve off because she felt it didn't set up well for her. She wanted a rest week, and she's been focusing on getting ready for this tournament. She was on the podium at the Champions Cup, folks.
She could win.
Do not rule out Sarah Hokum. This is not the Pro Tour. This is not a 9,500-foot track. So sleep on her at your peril. I almost put her on my podium. I didn't do it, but I almost did it. All right, so let's get into our list of players who are looking for their first major win all time. So let's just set that one aside. Obviously, we understand winning your first major is a huge deal for anybody. We don't need to belabor the point. Val Mondahano, we've already talked about her as part of the Big Four this season. And to me, this would cement her as the number 2 player this season behind Paige Pierce. And I know that may be a little bit of a hot take because Kristen Tatar.
Yeah.
But Kristen didn't win Champions Cup.
That's
she
true.
Choked it away. I know it's harsh, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
She let it get away, and you got to win majors.
Okay.
That at the end of the season, we're going to look back at who won the majors.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
And to me, this would put her into the number 2 spot behind Paige. It would be obviously, again, first major, huge deal. It would tell us about the ascendancy of Val Mondahano, which we already understand. But to me, this is like, okay, you are now like very squarely in the player of the year conversation if you're not already.
Yeah. Yep. Fair point. I like it. Missy Gannon. Missy Gannon has the major without an M at the Throw Pink Disc Golf Championship last year. Look, I think if Missy wins this tournament, you have to take Missy as a serious contender to win on any given week on any stage. We talk about World's Whisperer, Emerson Keith. You would have to start talking about, major moment Missy Gannon. And that's a big deal to have a player who can be consistent and at any major just show up and say, all right, I'm here to ball and I have a chance at winning this. And I think that's a big deal for Missy and would be very validating for her.
How about for Owen Scoggins? To me, Owen Scoggins is still hunting that Elite Series or major win. This would be career validation. She could retire after this win and you'd be like, wow, what a legendary player and career. Tremendous player. I think has the skill set to succeed this weekend. And this is just like, she would, I don't know what the stats are on this. Oldest player to ever win a major. She might become it. It's possible.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting look. But definitely agree on the career validation though. Henna Blumroos, often overshadowed when you talk about the big 3 out of Europe. The other 2 have majors. The other 2 have had more recent success as well. But I think it's really noteworthy. Henna has 3 second place finishes at majors. Just barely fallen short a handful of times. I think that this really, I think Henna is an amazing player. If the trajectory continues as it is now, we may still talk about the big 3 in the here and now, but 5 or 10 years down the road, we will talk about the 2 Europeans who came over and dominated the field and were competitive on the FPO side, Evelina and Kristen. And I think Henna quickly becomes an afterthought. Winning a major erases all that.
Haley King, it's been a slow start for her this season. And she just hasn't even been relevant. She hasn't been relevant this year. Very strange, given how well we saw her playing last year. Win here erases all that. Welcome back. Hailstorm, hype train rolling. You start thinking about what could happen later this year.
Ella Hansen, we know that she is the next big thing. The question is, where is her ceiling now, right? winning a major pushes that ceiling higher than anything else, any other single win or performance that you can have. And I think it confirms that Ella is the next big thing in FPO, and you have to watch out for Ella moving forward. And that starts this weekend.
It'd be quite the storyline because remember, Ella Hansen really announced herself on the professional scene with a podium finish at last year's U.S. Women's. It was her first 1,000 rated round of her career. To get her first win at this year's would be quite the narrative arc. Kat Mertsch, she's had a good season. She doesn't have any wins. She's never had any wins. This win would mean a whole lot. And I think you'd start to have to look at Kat Mertsch on a more regular basis as somebody who's in the top tier on tour. That's somebody who can win. Now, I'm not quite to the level yet of like a Missy Gannon type, but a similar kind of story where you're like, wow, Kat Mertsch, like on the right set of courses, she can beat the field. That's what a win would mean to her this weekend.
Last but not least, Kona Panis. Look, if you sign a 4-year contract and you win one major a year while you're on that contract, I think you've done your job. And she has had a really rough season. She has been victim of the high expectations that come with a $125,000 payday. I think a win at the major validates that contract, and especially on a course that we would not say sets up for Kona. It's not an emphasis on distance. It actually takes away her biggest advantage. And so for her to win this, I think would add a lot of legitimacy to the contract that she signed in this offseason.
So that brings us to our picks. Josh, I'll let you decide if you want to go first or second today.
I'll go first. That way, if you have any of the same picks, you're copying me, not the other way around. In third place, I have Evelina. I think on a course that is, Circle 1 in regulation, going to be 80%, as Sarah Hokum put it, or 80% of the holes you can hit Circle 1 in regulation or parked. I want the player on my top 3 who is oftentimes the cleanest on the tee to green, because it's noteworthy. Evelina's skill isn't just her power. She's exceptional off the tee, both in control, accuracy, and power, which gives her, I think, a lot of advantage going into a weekend. And I know you've talked about emphasizing putting, but I think on a course putting can overcome deficiencies more so, right? Like a good putting game can overcome a lackluster driving game, but I think that a top tier driver, both in accuracy and power, has a strong advantage on courses that are easily scoreable, because it means that she doesn't have to putt at all. And that's what I think is the likelihood for Evelina. I've got her in third place. Second place, I've got Missy Gannon. She's coming off second place at Preserve. It's a course that I think favors an all-around player like Missy Gannon. There's a couple other in this field that I think are very similar in that all-around style, but she has the necessary power to get there. She is accurate. She is going to stay on the fairway. Granted, based on the Caddie book, there isn't a lot of OB or rough either, or trees even, so that's a nice advantage. But she also can putt, and that combination I think is going to bode really well. I've got Missy in second place. My winner, though, Paige Pierce. She's got a lot to play for on this weekend. But most importantly, and I think I mentioned this on the Tuesday show, when you can outdrive these holes by 100, 200, 250 feet, yes, it takes away the distance advantage. But when power is effortless and you can disc down on every single hole from what you typically would throw, it gives an increased level of accuracy and confidence that minimizes mistakes, which is Paige's biggest problem oftentimes, is the kind of mistakes that can be made as she's pushing the limits of what her game can be. I think when you give her the opportunity to play at 70%, she's going to be more accurate, more consistent, and harder to beat than ever before.
All right. Well, there's Josh's picks. Remember that you can check out all of our picks and track the leaderboard during the season at discgolf.ultiworld.com/upshot-picks. And you can check out all of our results from the year so far and also vote for who you think has the best picks. Here we go. In the third spot, I have Valerie Mondahano. All-around game extraordinaire. I think that
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, Valerie feels like just a slightly worse player than Paige Pierce. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a really good way.
Yeah.
The ability across, and in fact, Valerie Mondahano has a better forehand. Across the board, Valerie Mondahano has the skills to compete. And that's why we are seeing her win on different types of courses, and we're seeing her up at the top of the leaderboard with regularity. I think she has a clear focus. I think she has a clear purpose for her game. She's dead. I mean, watching her in the press conference, she's just like ultra locked in, ready to go compete for this thing. And I think she has a great chance to outright win the tournament. I mean, I think that is a realistic possibility. I've got her in my third spot. In my second spot, I have Own Scoggins. I think hitting some big circle 2 putts is going to be a part of the story for success this weekend at Elver and Token Creek. I think there's going to be times when it's really just going to come down to who hits their putts on certain holes. And I know that Scoggins has the ability to throw the backhands and the forehands with enough distance on these courses to be competitive. Like, it's obviously a big weakness for her in a lot of places, but it's not going to be a problem this weekend. I seriously consider picking Scoggins to win. I seriously considered it. I think that she's got a great chance. In my one spot, I have Paige Pierce. I tried to talk myself out of it in various ways, but I can't. I think the biggest factor for me is that last year on similarly easy courses, short courses, Paige blew everybody away. And on top of that, Paige looked phenomenal at the Preserve.
Yep.
And you combine that with the fact that she hasn't missed the second place at a major in 5 years, like worse than second place in 5 years. With that kind of legacy of success, I don't know how you don't pick Paige. I think you really have to have some gumption to pick somebody else this weekend without KT in the field. So that's my picks. We both take Paige to win. Are you ready for your over-under?
I am. I was about to ask. I think it's your week for the over-under. So
I got you.
Let me have it.
Been a big conversation. What kind of scoring are we going to see this weekend? Everybody talking about hot scoring. A lot of attackable holes, a lot of birdie opportunities out there on these courses. Maybe every single hole has birdie available to much of the field. So what kind of scores are we going to see? We heard some players say 7, 8 under. Sarah Hokum said she could see somebody shooting 12 to 14 under this weekend for the hot round. So Josh, the question is, hot round of the weekend, 4 rounds, 2 at Token, 2 at Elver, 12.5 under par. Over means you think it's going to be a further under par round. Right.
Okay. That's a lot. It's a lot of birdies.
It's a lot of birdies.
It's a lot of birdies.
There's very little OB on these courses. I will note that.
Yeah. I think the lack of bogeys is going to be the biggest thing that pushes me. You know what? I've watched you bet against the players lots of times and lose lots of times as a result. Give me the over. I think someone's going to hit 13.
Wow. All right. Josh takes the over. I've got the under. Put it in the books. It's going to be interesting to see. We saw a real wide range of kind of scoring suggestions from players. So we'll see how it plays. Coverage is available on YouTube, post-production, and on the Disc Golf Network. I'm pretty sure that if you're a PDGA member, you should be able to watch this coverage on DGN for free, even if you do not have a DGN membership. So I can't say that I know exactly how to get that, but check into it, folks, because I think it should be available if you are a PDGA member. So that is going to do it for this week's edition of our preview show here on the Upshot. If you want to hear a little bit more about the Preserve, we got an extra sub-bonus segment, a bonus sub-bonus for our subscribers. We talk about spectators' reactions to the Preserve. We've got some really interesting emails with some different kinds of thoughts. It goes beyond just the Preserve itself and into some things about course design and event management, and other things. So we hope you check out that and join us in the Discord as well. discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. And you can also make sure that you get access to all of our rapid react shows, including the one we're going to do about the U.S. Women's Championships on Sunday evening. So enjoy it, everybody. I'm off to Bend to join Val Jenkins and Brian Earhart in the booth for this weekend's coverage. So, Josh, text me. Let me know how I'm doing, all right?
Will do.
All right. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll see you next Tuesday with a recap of the U.S. Women's Championships.